Alright, so in the last video you saw me take some rims and tires apart at V&R. Those are true Alcoas and they are going on the inside. For the outsides, we got a price at polishing. It must have been wrong. My Silverado rims, which are 16-inch rims, it was 500 bucks for 4, so 120 bucks per rim. James got a quote to polish rims for 300 bucks, transport truck rims. And then we called up Traction in Hamilton, which is our main truck supplier. I'm sure you guys have one local. And they 279 bucks for polished aluminum rims, which I don't understand. Alcoas are good for 7,500 pounds, and so are these. But look at this. Oh, 279 bucks. And then I bought valve stems, and they even come with valve stems. So don't even bother just polishing the rims, just buy new rims. Anyway, smell some tires. All right, so funny story. We bought our truck off of a guy that lived 4 minutes away, and he actually had 2 of them. My neighbor came over, saw an extended bunk cab over, and him being a trucker, wanted to check it out. One thing led to another, and he went and bought the other one. We've just been trading parts back and forth, and I think ours is going to take a little bit longer to get back on the road. I'm pretty sure he bought the wrong one. I'm still pretty confident in our truck. There's lots of videos on how to stretch a frame. We're gonna see about just putting the cab and the engine right onto this girl. We're going to roll the frame up from underneath and then just roll this underneath.
Rich, this is the roughest one yet.
No, it's fine.
No, it's the roughest one yet.
No, it's not. It's fine. You get your shoes. We're using Meritor, which is the best you can get. All right, so I got my box of airbags delivered, along with shoes. Okay, so our truck normally would have had 24 5s on it, but 11 or 22 5s are a lot more common of a tire. So if we ever have a blowout or whatever on the road, it's much easier to get a 22 5 tire than a 24. So we bought these Yokohama Super Steels. We're gonna see how these last. Yokohama's a good name in tires. So we're gonna give these a shot. We've got 8 drives and 2 steers, and it has been about 20 years since I've done transport truck tires. So we'll see how rusty I am. I'm gonna be sweating a little bit. I used to be the spare tire guy at the old shop that I worked. So I've done combine tires down to the lawnmower tires. But transport truck's been a while. So let's see how I do. Here we go. So yellow dot goes by the valve stem. And then I always just lube just the top half, the bottom half kind of. Come about tire iron. I don't like the little lip on there, but we'll try it. Still got it. That's one. And then now put it in a cage and air it up. I don't have a cage, so I'm probably just gonna air it up around the corner. If it blows, just blow outside, not kill me. Set the compressor to 120, because it'll take a while to air up. And when it's full, it'll just stop putting air in it. Here we go. Okay. All right, so we got a couple rims here. These are the used Alcoas. Used rims are always kind of hit and miss. You really want it. There's always a lip that wears right here. So when you're picking up some used rims or thinking about using used rims, really beware of the lip there. I can start to feel it. It's just a little bit, but not nearly as bad as this one. So I dismounted this one. Unfortunately, you can't really tell until it's gone, but you can see how that's wore a groove in there. That shouldn't be there. You can see it start to peel over here. So this rim is no good. We're gonna bring that back and see if V&R's got another one. Valve stems are always down when you're mounting tires, just a general rule. Sometimes it matters and sometimes it doesn't, but if you always have it down, you're always right. This is where the tire would sit, and then it's actually indented so that when you mount the tire, you can take the bead on the one side and put it in this groove so you can flip it over the other side. I lube half the tire because otherwise sometimes the tire starts walking around because it's slippery. So it'll dry on one side, it'll catch, and then it'll flip on the other side. I struggled with one tire, and that's just because I didn't have enough lube on there. So get the good stuff, and that lube is kind of stuck in there. So if I only do half, there's a better chance of the tire not walking on the rim. But that's just my theory. So one last tire. Unfortunately, we have one that we can't use, not the end of the world. So it's gonna be a shorter night. I guess I can clean the shop. Here we go. Okay, so transport truck brakes, about the easiest brakes that you could possibly do, and not very expensive either. The shoes were 90 bucks Canadian. The best drum that you could get was 160 Canadian, and that's really about all there is to it if you stay up on your maintenance. Luckily, Phil is really good at greasing, so the cams and that are all in good shape, bushings. So let's get into it. Quick little lesson on how air brakes work. There's two main systems, your parking brake and your service brake. So your parking brake comes on whether you like it or not. And that's done by a giant spring in this section of the piggyback. We call this piggyback brake chamber. And when I was in the trade, when I first started, you can see how you can take this one off. You used to be able to take this band off, and unless the spring was broken, this would fly out and would kill you. And eventually people thought, you know what, let's not give mechanics the option to kill themselves, and we'll make this a solid band so you can't take this off. So what happens is there's a giant spring that pushes on a rod, and for you to release your brakes, when you push in the yellow button, it fills up this chamber with a diaphragm and it pushes back on the spring. So if you lose air pressure as you're going down the road, if you blow an airbag and your compressor can't keep up, then your brakes are coming on. Whether you like it or not, that spring is gonna come out and lock up your tires and you will not be able to move. The only way you can move is if you manually stick one of these in there and you pull those springs back, you might be able to come off. And then usually the front axle only have service brakes, so you can still stop that way. But if you don't have 4 of those rods on there, you're kind of euchred. So the front works the other way. There's a diaphragm, and when you step on the brakes, it fills up this chamber and it pushes on the rod and activates your slack adjuster. So this is the rod that comes out, and this is your slack adjuster. Your slack adjuster pushes on an S-cam and opens up the brakes. So we're going to release this slack adjuster. We're going to back it off. It's a 7/16, so it's an automatic. If it's a 9/16 wrench that or socket that you put on, it's a manual slack, so you manually have to adjust your brakes every X amount of kilometers or miles. If it is a 7/16 and has kind of a ratchet, it's an auto. You still check them, but they should adjust themselves. So we'll back them off so we can get the drum off, and we'll show you what's going on behind there. Almost smashed the camera. Almost smashed. Better that than my face. Whoa, almost did it again. All right, these clevises, we want to make sure that those spin free, so we'll probably heat them up, take them out, and never sees the snot out of them. But now we should be able to spin this drum, I think, and take the drum off. That's heavy. It's not light. Should work. Here we go. Nice. Okay, so these will have a groove on there to tell you when it's time to replace it, and we're pretty well close to replacing them, so we're gonna do it regardless whether they need it or not, because they're only 90 bucks. I do find that these drums have kind of a lip on them, so they probably are out of spec. But what happens when the rod comes out of the brake chamber, it turns this S cam. You can see the shape of the S here. And then there's a roller on your shoes that rolls up onto the S cam, and as it rotates, it goes up onto that heel, and then it opens up these shoes. That's all there is to it. One spring on this side, two on this side, and to pull it back down again, and that is it. So we'll change these shoes, we'll clean them up. We got all new drums, we'll splash some paint on the hubs. We're not going to do wheel seals because none of these were leaking, and this thing was still in service a couple years ago, so it's not, the seals are dry. If they're not leaking, we're not going to touch them. So here we go. The hardest thing is these stupid springs. I'm sure there's a tool for it, just I don't have the tool. So yeah, one end of the shoe rides on this pin. Sometimes if you've got two pins, you can knock those pins out. This is your S cam. I'm gonna check your bushings. You wanna make sure that doesn't go up and down. A little bit of side to side is fine. But you wanna make sure that it stays nice and greased. Right there, grease fitting. And when you get your shoes, we're using Meritor, which is the best you can get. In Canada here anyway. You get two shoes. Big circle, small circle, even color coded for you people who can't tell the difference between sizes. And it's a little bag, two rollers, two orange springs, one green spring, and that, and two little springs there. That's it. Here we go. All right, so we've got our drums on there, time to replace the bag. Now, 5 of the 8 needed to be replaced. They're all weather cracked or chafed. But because there's 5 and there's actually only 8, we're gonna replace them all, just because. So I got the one, went to traction, grabbed one. They only had one, so while the tires are off, we can at least take all of these off. I'm really excited to put the rims and the tires back on because that means that we're done. But
at least it's kind of a pain to get these off, especially with the piggyback underneath. So probably take the piggyback off so we can get at the bolts underneath. And then these stupid things go through an aluminum block, and then steel and aluminum don't go so well together. So we'll beat them off, and then we'll go from there. Here we go.
Starting to remember why I hate trucks. My boss wanted me to get my apprenticeship and get my full license. And I said, I hate working on trucks. So I said no.
Too many aluminum and steel parts together.
Oh yeah,
I know what I'm doing. And so this is why we're doing the bags now, because half the bag is still up there. That's pretty bad.
All right, so we got the one bag on, and I'm waiting for the other one. There's other stuff to do, but I just gotta put the rims and tires on, because when do you have this many nice new rims and tires? Valve stems opposite each other, so they're easy to find. All right, putting the Milwaukee gun to the test. There's always something. So it had aluminum rims on it when I got it, so I thought it had aluminum rims, but it must not have, because the stud is flush with the nut, and legally you need thread sticking out. So I need to take all the drums back off again, bang out all the studs, and put in longer studs. Always something. Anyway, not the end of the world. Hopefully by then the bags will be here anyway, because the tires really get in the way of putting the bags back on. So that's why it takes so long to do everything. I love how she watches each swing.
Eyes on the hammer.
All right, so I got my box of airbags delivered, along with shoes and some front shocks and the last slack adjuster that I needed, front brake pots. But bugs me because I got shoes but no spring kit or brake kit. So they come standard in the rear brakes, but apparently not in the front, so I still can't put the fronts on. That's not the end of the world, because I'm not ready to do that for a few days anyway. Just like, why do you gotta spell everything out? We're restoring a truck. You saw that it was super rusty at the store. He's pissed off because it's so rusty. I'm like, yes, I obviously need a spring kit for it. Anyway, all my piggybacks seem to be in good shape. As far as I can tell, no rattling noises, a little bit rusty, crusty, but I think we're gonna opt not to replace all of them, just because at some point we do have to keep some sort of budget in mind. So I'm gonna splash some paint on it, and then not risk getting any paint on my nice new airbags. So we'll splash some paint on them, and then we'll install the airbags. I need to get one bracket off the other truck, because this one's cracked. Send that to the sandblaster and get that painted. And I can paint that with the front axle. So I knew there was all gonna be little odds and ends pieces that I forgot, and that's why we got more paint, and we're gonna touch all those pieces up. Things like now that the shocks are extended, you can see that the paint isn't on there. I might pull the shocks off, just make sure that they're all good. Maybe paint them black and then pop them back on again. I gotta take this torque rod off yet, but one thing at a time. Let's paint the piggybacks. I got new diaphragms for it. And then, should be good. Here we go. Okay, well I got 5 of the 8 bags, and that's because 3 of the saddles are missing the other half. Oddly enough, it's all the ones that are aluminum. The steel ones, the homemade ones, are working just fine. But I'm gonna grab some from the other frame, which is outside. And it's cold out and dark out. So we'll call that a day. Not bad, we're getting there. It's starting to look like something. I'm happy with the progress. I should have pretty well most of it buttoned up by tomorrow. We can put the brakes back on, and then got some studs in. Then we can put the tires on and put the front assembly back on, and then roll it outside. There we go. These pins by safety, the clevis pins need to spin. These are a little rusty, so you're gonna heat them up and take them out. The point of that is this rod comes out and pushes on your slack adjuster and then your S-cam. And if they're not able to spin, then this starts happening. And you don't want that. That means your brakes are not up to par. So I pulled the back ones out already. We'll heat up the front, take those out, get some new clevis pins, and then the brakes are pretty well under control. Here we go. All right, replacing all the grease fittings with some good old Princess Auto grease fittings, and lubing everything up. It'll be good to go. Bet you didn't know that WD-40 makes grease. You do now. Here we go. All right, so we had the one bad rim, and I called Phil up, asked if he had one with round holes. Otherwise, these were the original 2 tires that came on the frame as Phil brought in the driveway. He says, bring me those other 2 rims back and I'll trade you for a good one with round holes, which is amazing because technically I never paid for these rims from him in the first place. Awesome neighbors. I think he's appreciating the work that's being done. It looks much better than it did in his dirt pile covered in crap. We're gonna have the front suspension on it tomorrow. We're just finishing up the back half today, and that's it. Here we go. Okay, so Phil came through, got a decent rim. Just gonna clean it up a little bit and mount the tire. The power went out, so it's kind of dark, but I have just enough Milwaukee battery life left and air in my compressor to mount that one tire, and then we'll go from there. Here we go. All right, I think we got 60 pounds left in the bag, or in the compressor. Let's see if I can plug this in.
Oh yeah. Nice. All the bags popping.
Oh! And you hear that?
No big air leaks.
Oh! So happy. Even though it's actually brighter on camera than it is in the shop here. Oh. Going now. Why? Oh, why are you not full? That's weird. That one's not full. That one's not full. Is it? That's weird. Okay, I'll figure that out when the power comes back on. All right, so as you know, we were making two videos at the same time. You have to check out how we stretched our frame in the last video. So the entire front suspension is done. I got my parts for the brakes and that, so we have to put the brakes and everything on the front axle, but that's basically exactly the same as the back, so probably won't film that. We've already got a lot farther. We've mounted our tanks. We've shortened the one fuel tank. That one had the dents in it. I didn't realize that the two were different sizes, so Ventool Trucking donated another tank and we welded those two together, so put Vince to the test. The fenders are also just about ready, so the next video will be the tanks and mounting the fenders, and then we could send them off to Newport to get color matched to the cab. So lots done, lots going on behind the scenes, and we're moving right along. So feel really good about this build and the other ones as well. Remember, get out there and work on it, get filthy, because if you don't do it, nobody else is gonna do it. If you're not filthy, you're not rich. Here we go.